The first episode kicks off with Tommy tied up in a mysterious hangar in the middle of the desert, a bag over his head. He's being held by a gang of drug dealers whose boss soon arrives. Tommy doesn't panic, not even when the boss shoots one of his own foot soldiers. Instead, Tommy explains why he's there. He's a landman, someone who works for MTEX Oil, sent to negotiate a surface lease for the land the gang owns. As he explains, they own the land, but MTEX Oil has the mineral rights, allowing them to drill for oil there. Tommy and the gang leader eventually reach an agreement. Both parties will leave each other to their business. MTEX Oil won't contact the DEA, and in return, they'll pay to pave a road for the gang's use. Tommy succeeds in getting them on the same page, explaining that they're both selling products. His is just bigger. The leader signs the lease and lets him go. As Tommy gets in his car and leaves, he explains via voiceover that the oil industry generates $4.3 trillion in revenue each year, but someone has to be the bridge between landowners and oil tycoons. That's his job. 6 months later, a plane lands on Tommy's newly built road, on the land he previously negotiated. As soon as it arrives, drug dealers quickly load packages onto a small van. However, they don't see the large truck hurtling toward them. It doesn't brake in time, slamming into the plane and van, causing a dramatic explosion and killing everyone. Elsewhere, Tommy's son Cooper is waking up for his first day on the oil patch. Before dawn, he leaves the man camp and is called into the truck of Luis, Armando, and Elio, three workers instructed by Tommy to help make his son a roughneck. The day starts badly when Cooper makes the mistake of ordering a latte at the coffee window. At home, Tommy has breakfast with his pals Dale and Nate. Nate reminds him that he has to be in court for a deposition at 11 a.m. sharp, but there's no time for that. Tommy gets a phone call about the plane. He had actually reported it missing 6 weeks earlier, so he races to the crash site. When he arrives, Sheriff Walt is furious that Tommy didn't notify him about the missing plane right away. But Tommy doesn't care. He's got 4,200 barrels of oil that need transporting through that road ASAP. He calls his team and instructs them to build a new road around the crash, but not before asking the sheriff if he'd kindly backdate his police report, or at least note that the FAA was notified. Tommy is trying to reach a man named Monty Miller when he gets an irritated FaceTime call from his ex-wife, Angela. She asks him to take care of their daughter, Anley, for the weekend, while she vacations with her new husband. Why? Because she wants to keep Anley from having sex with her heartthrob football player boyfriend. The idea of preventing this is enough to get Tommy to agree instantly. He finishes his incredibly flirty call with Angela by discussing Cooper's first day on the oil patch. Soon after, he finally gets through to the suited and booted Texas oil titan, Monty Miller. Monty, having lunch in a high-rise with some fellow big shots, pauses to help Tommy organize some legal assistance for their new plane troubles. Meanwhile, on the oil patch, Cooper's having a rough time. The guys play a prank on him, asking him to climb to the top of the well to fetch a completely fictional valve. On his way back down, he slips and falls. Luckily, he's wearing a harness. It takes a lot of coaxing from Elio to get him back down. At lunch, Tommy meets with a lawyer and his landowner client who want to sue him for damages to their land caused by a fire. Tommy tries to argue that it was a natural disaster, while the client insists it was due to faulty drilling equipment. Smooth as ever, Tommy offers them $300,000 to avoid going through the official surface damages process, fronting the money as a solar lease so he can justify the payment. Tommy meets Ansley at the airport. The two greet each other happily, but Ansley has managed to sneak her boyfriend onto the trip. His name is Dakota Loving, and he's about as big of a jerk as his name suggests. On the way home, the three stop at a football game where it becomes clear that Dakota is something of a minor celebrity. He flirts with other cheerleaders, which doesn't seem to concern Ansley in the slightest. When Tommy presses her about whether they're being safe, she sweetly tells him that Dakota is never allowed to finish in certain places, just on certain places. Needless to say, Tommy's expression is one of abject horror. Later in the stands, he watches as Dakota gropes Ansley in front of the crowd, and his annoyance grows. At the end of a long, hard day on the job, Cooper gets invited into Luis, Armando, and Elio's home for dinner. They attempt to teach him a little Spanish, and he learns that Armando was once in prison and also has a daughter. Cooper then almost chokes while eating spicy tacos. Back at home, Tommy and Ansley's bizarre back and forth continues. When he separates her and Dakota for the night, Ansley, standing in front of her father in her underwear, asks if she can please sleep with Dakota on the couch since she's never actually slept with him or woken up in his arms. Under the promise that they won't do anything more, Tommy relents. But when Ansley goes into the living room and lays out the terms to Dakota, he looks baffled. The idea of not being able to go any further is completely off the table for him, and he refuses to let her sleep on the couch without anything else happening. Ansley goes back into Tommy's room sobbing. Tommy comforts her and assures her that Dakota doesn't know what he's missing out on. The next day, the boys are hard at work back at the oil well. They ask Cooper to run and fetch a 24-inch pipe, which he struggles to find. While he's searching, Luis, Armando, and Elio are hammering at a pipe that slowly hisses, releasing gas. When Luis strikes another blow, the hammer sparks a flame. In seconds, the well erupts in a fiery explosion, knocking Cooper into the air and onto the ground.